For lesson 2-6, we're going to learn how to multiply integers. So, if there are an odd number of negative factors, we'll have a negative product. If there are an even number of negative factors, we're going to have a positive product. Okay, so some key words here are the words factors and product, of course. I could change color here to highlight those words a little bit more. So, for example, if I have 2 times 7, I don't have any negative factors. 2 and 7 are both factors, and my product would be 14. So product is the answer that we get when we multiply. So 2 and 7 are both factors. They're both positive, so therefore my answer is positive. All right, now if I were to say negative 2 times 7, all right, so now I have one negative factor. 1 is an odd number. So an odd number of negative factors, we're going to get a negative product. So since I have one negative, then my answer will be negative 14. Okay, so if there's an odd number, right now we have 1. 1 is an odd number. Our answer will be negative. All right, so the same thing if I go negative, if I say 2 times negative 7. Again, I just have one odd factor, or one negative factor, which is odd. Okay, so one negative factor. This one's positive, so that means I only have one, so that means my answer would be negative 14. Now, if I had negative 2 times negative 7, all right, now I have one negative factor and 2 negative factors. All right, now 2 is an even number, okay? So I have 1, 2. Okay, I'm not talking about the number 2. I just have 1 negative, 2 negatives. All right, you just count up your negatives. If I have 2 negatives, all right, and I'm multiplying, again, you have to kind of separate the rules for addition and subtraction. We were learning and we were saying I have and I owe and all those things. Saying I have and I owe go with addition and subtraction, okay? When you're multiplying, and then in the next lesson we will be dividing. When you're multiplying or dividing, then all we have to do is count the number of negatives. And if it's odd, the answer will be negative. If it's even, the answer will be positive. So you just got to be able to count your negatives. So I have 2. 2 is an even number, so that means we'll be positive here. And so 2 times 7 is 14. So these two answers here are 14, okay? We have both positive equals 14, both negative equals 14. Here I just had one negative is negative 14, and one negative is negative 14. So if I were to, like, make a really drastic problem here, and I was going to say, like, negative 1 times 3 times negative 3 times negative 1 times negative 4 times 3 times 2 times negative 1. Now, I'm not even asking what the answer is. I'm just saying, is the answer going to be positive or negative? Okay, well, all you got to do is count. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so there are 5 negatives. All right, so 5 is an odd number. So therefore, the answer, we would have a negative product. Okay, so I'm not even talking about the answer. I'm just saying, all right, we can very easily just figure out whether the answer will be positive or negative. All right, now, since I have this here and we're writing it in the notes and taking time to do this in the video, you should have this in your notes as well. So find a spot to get it written down. All right, so let's go ahead and just practice with just a couple numbers here. Okay, so 5 times 4 is obviously 20. But then I have one negative, so the answer is going to be negative 20. Okay, so all you got to do is count them. If you have an odd number, it's negative. An even number is positive. So 3 times 9 is 27, and then we have one negative, so it's negative 27. It's as easy as that. What are you going to do for homework? Well, of course, I'm going to have you copy it out of the book. So you're going to say negative 3 times 9, and you could say negative 27. Or you could write it down below. You could say negative 27, kind of how I'm doing it over here. All right? All right, now, so I'll model this like you would do homework, okay? You see this in the book, you're going to copy it. Negative 6 times negative 8. Now, we don't see a multiplication symbol here, but a number right next to parentheses, that means we are multiplying, okay? Now, if I check this out, I have two negatives. I see that right away, so you could just make a little note to the side and say, yep, we're going to have a negative answer. Just like on this one, you could have said, okay, we're going to have a negative answer there. And here we're going to have a negative answer. Now on this one, we're going to have a positive answer. There are two negatives, and that will make a positive. So all you have to do is 6 times 8 is 48. Okay, so your homework can look just like this. You circle. I really like to see you circling the negatives, even when there's just one. So copy it down and circle that negative right there. Okay, so copy this down, circle that negative right there. All right, I like to see those negatives being circled so that way I know that you are looking at them. Okay, now it says find negative 8 squared. Okay, well, what is, if we remember here, okay, 8 squared equals 8 times 8, not 8 times 2. But since it's negative 8 squared, we're going to write negative 8 times negative 8. Okay, because the whole thing is being squared. All right. Realize that would be much different if I were to say negative 8 squared and I don't have parentheses. Now what that says is I'm going to do negative and then we're going to do 8 times 8. Okay, that's a big difference because here I'm going to get 64 on the inside and then negative will still be there. Now when I do it this way, all right, we're going to have the two negatives, so that means we're going to get a positive answer, and I'm going to have a positive 64. Okay, so you see the big difference? Here I have positive 64, here I have negative 64. So that's the big difference that it makes to either have the parentheses or not. That exponent 2 says that we are going to multiply whatever is inside, that includes your negative symbol, you're going to multiply it all twice. So negative 8 times negative 8. Don't just do 8 times 8. Do negative 8 times negative 8. All right. So the same thing here. We'll copy this down. We'll say negative 5 times negative 5. All right. How many negatives are there? We have 1. We have 2. That's an even number, so we're going to have a positive answer. So 5 times 5 is 25. All right. So just count up your negatives. If you have an even number, it's positive. Odd number is negative. Again, this is true because we are multiplying. All right, all the rules that we learned before with multiplication and subtraction, those rules are still true for multiplication and subtraction. These are new rules because we are multiplying. All right, so we got some 3 digits here. So again, negative, negative, negative. That's an odd number. There's 1, 2, 3. So I know my answer will be negative. All right. If I did 2 times 5, that's going to give me 10 times 6, and 10 times 6 is 60, and then I can add my negative at the end. Okay. So when you're multiplying, you don't really have to worry about bringing those negatives down. Okay. Don't even worry about it. Make your note over here to the side. Now, what would I expect you to do for homework? I would expect you to copy this problem. You're going to copy negative 2 times negative 5 times negative 6. Why do I want you to copy it? Well, simply because I want to see you circle those negatives. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3. That's an odd number. And then over here, you write your negative. And then you can just do your multiplication. You do 10 times 6, and then you do your 60. Then don't forget to bring your negative down. Okay, and there's your negative 60. All right, don't forget that. Don't forget to bring it down. 60 is not the same as negative 60. All right, so we would copy this out of the book. Then we can count 1, 2, 3. That's an odd number, so we know our answer is going to be negative. All right, so let's do 7 times 3. That's 21 times 4. Well, 4 times 1 gives me 4, 4 times 2 gives me 8, and I knew it was going to be negative, so don't forget to add the negative symbol. All right? All right, a mine elevator descends. Okay, there's a key word right there, descends. All right, descends means to go down or means we're going to have a negative number. It descends at a rate of 300 feet per minute. So that's kind of like saying negative 300. Okay, how far below the Earth's surface will the elevator be after 5 minutes? Okay, again, a key word here is per. Remember, per means multiply and per minute. So 300 times minutes, okay, and it gives us 5 minutes right here. So we're going to say 300 times 5. All right, how many negatives do we have? Just one. So that means our answer is going to be negative. All right, 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 3 is 15. All right, so negative 1,500. Since this is a word problem, don't forget your units. All right, negative 1,500 feet. Okay, and that would be your answer. Don't forget your units. This is a word problem, okay? Whenever you have a word problem, you should have a label or units. All right, some algebra here. We need to substitute some numbers for letters, okay? It says evaluate A, B, C. Well, this is A times B times C. Whenever letters are right next to each other, we are going to multiply. So let's go ahead and substitute, all right? We'll do negative 3 times 5 times negative 8. Notice I substituted using parentheses, okay? Now circle your negatives. We'll go negative there, negative there. That's 2, so we're going to have a positive answer. All right, now I'm going to multiply the 5 and the 8 together first because that's going to give me a nice number with a 0 in the end. That's going to give me 40. And then I'm going to bring my 3 down. Notice right now I'm not even paying attention to my negatives, okay, because I already know my answer is going to be positive, so I can just work out the factoring, the multiplication. Okay, so 3 times 4 is 12, with a 0 is 120. Okay, and that's going to be my answer, and I know it is positive because I already figured that out. So now I need to do x times y times z. So x is negative 6, y is negative 2, and z is 4. All right, so we have 1, 2 negatives, so that means I'm going to have a positive answer. So now I can just completely forget about the negatives up here because I know my answer is going to be positive. All right, it's always easier to just double a number. So instead of doubling now and then multiplying by 4, let's go ahead and do our 6 times 4 first. So we get 24 times 2. It doesn't really matter what order we're doing this in because multiplication and addition are commutative. Remember the commutative property? So we can do these in any order. All right, and then we can just double 24, which is 48. Now we knew the answer was going to be positive from doing our work already. So we can just forget about these negatives and just do our work, and we get an answer of 48. All right, and that brings us to our last example for today. Be sure to check the Moodle page for homework.